This phone right here is ranked the #1 smartphone in the world when it comes to the camera system, and even more so than the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which a lot of us can agree is a really good set of cameras. But the Oppo Find X7 Ultra, according to DXOMark, ranked higher than the iPhone. And so in this video, I decided to snap a bunch of pictures, photos only. We'll do video in a different video if you want to see it, so let me know in the comments down below. Of course, we went out on social media. We asked you in a blind camera test, which photos did you all like? We put up a poll. The poll results kind of skewed towards the iPhone, which is interesting, but a lot of the comments seem to be, well, I liked camera B for some photos and I liked camera A for some of these other photos and vice versa. And I think a lot of that is just your own opinion, and that makes total sense because in my opinion, I liked a lot of the photos that I got from Oppo and I liked a lot of the photos that I got from the iPhone. These are just straight out of the camera, point and shoot, no edits made. I focused on normal photos, nighttime photos, and then some portrait modes. And so with that said, let's jump right into these pictures and I'll let you know which one I liked more and why. So let's start with the point and shoot. I think just in daylight photos, it's a lot harder to figure out which one you like better, but I still feel like I gotta go with the Oppo X7 Ultra just because in some instances it's a lot less washed out. So let's look at this sky. At first glance, and honestly, for most people, it's probably gonna be a toss-up. I mean, I could totally understand why some would like the iPhone better, but for me, if you just start looking around in these areas here where we have the blue on the tips of the castle here, it just looks a little more vibrant. Even the sky has a different shade of blue, and it's all going to be based on your opinion, whether or not you prefer the Oppo's shade of blue compared to the iPhone. It looks like the iPhone tends to go a little bit warmer these days, and that's kind of what we're getting at here. But if I look at the purple in this pillar over here on the flag, this purple is just a little bit more saturated. It's a little bit more vibrant. And if you like that, then you're gonna enjoy these photos more on the Oppo X7 Ultra compared to the iPhone. And I think this kind of carries throughout. Let's go through a couple other ones here. This is a dark, cloudy day. But one thing I do want to point out is that I feel like there is just a lot more detail to be had, and the iPhone seems to be washing things out. Back in the day, that was kind of a problem with iPhone versus Samsung, with the Samsung being the phone that would tend to wash out a lot of the photos. But here, compared to Oppo, it just seems a lot more washed out. There's way more detail in the trees, in the actual building here for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Excellent looking building. I love taking photos of it. You've probably seen it a million times. It just has a ton of detail that you can kind of zoom in and really focus on when it comes to these pictures. So looking at this little jutting out portion of the building here, there's a lot more detail. It's not as washed out. I feel like overall it's a better photo. Even the clouds in the background here underneath that portion, I feel like you get a little bit more vibrancy and it's just a little bit better in my opinion. But again, first glance, you can say, maybe I like that I can see more detail here. It is a lower light, it's just a gloomy day, so the iPhone is doing a better job of kind of boosting some of the areas that might be harder to see, but this one just feels more natural in my opinion. With the telephoto lens, same deal here. I feel like this is, it's gonna go for me to the Oppo just because it's so much more vibrant in the blues, but maybe you don't like that. Maybe this doesn't feel as natural. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. My guess is it's a little bit more natural here with the iPhone, but I just like the vibrancy and the saturation. These are all untouched again, straight out of the camera, and I try my best to make sure that the compositions are as accurate as possible. These telephoto lenses are a little bit different in terms of the focal length and where I was standing. Again, I'm in Disney World. It's hard to take every photo and be exactly the same. So with this photo here, I feel like there are a couple of different reasons why I could go with each photo. I like the sky more on the iPhone. It's not as blown out here. It looks like it overexposed a little bit on the Oppo. But the Oppo has a much sharper image for the actual like boathouse docking area. So here it just seems like everything is much more crisp and clear. But again, I don't like the sky. So I just think it's gonna be like, these cameras are both so good that you could honestly at some points choose different elements of each picture. And if you could combine them into one, then it would just be like the ultimate photo. This bookshelf, honestly, it's a toss up. I think it just kind of depends on what if you like the warmer color on the iPhone than you do on the Oppo and vice versa. This desk, kind of a horrible photo on the Oppo X7 Ultra. I prefer the iPhone here. It's dark. It's doing what it's been doing, like we've been talking about, where the highlights are a little bit higher on the iPhone compared to the X7 Ultra. But in this instance, I don't like the way it works. Honestly, the Epcot ball here, I feel like this could go either way. The X7 Ultra, again, the vibrancy of the flowers, I like it better, but on the iPhone, this is just a better overall photo. It's just much more crisp, a lot more detail. I think this is, again, another toss-up. It's kind of the same thing. Let's see. Okay, I marked this as interesting because the skies are actually doing something totally different. I don't remember, this was so long ago, I don't remember which one was more accurate. So this is going to come down to which one you like better. I think I got to go with the iPhone on this one. I believe it looks good. And then I did go up in each camera lens. So this is the next step up here. So that was ultra wide. This is your main lens. So the text on the iPhone is probably the same, honestly, in terms of whether you can read it better. The color temperatures certainly change a lot when it comes to the telephoto lens. This goes a lot more warm on the Ultra compared to the iPhone. But I mean, they're all good pictures. It's going to be preference. I think I'm going to lean iPhone on this one. This is a toss-up. I think these both look really, really good. Telephoto lens, I'm going to have to go iPhone here. If you look at the lampshade here on the iPhone, it is not in focus compared to the X7 Ultra. And this is a portrait mode photo. So actually, both phones are messing up here. So if you look at the trees up top in the iPhone, you can see that it's doing what it needs to be doing. It's separating the subject from the background. But it didn't do a good job on actually isolating the lampshade, which is what I tapped to focus here. On the Oppo, it did a good job on this stuff on the front. Everything is in focus and clear, but then it like kind of blurred a little bit back here, but then didn't blur here. I guess technically the iPhone should be the overall winner because it has fewer mistakes, but it's just so soft on this lantern compared to, or this lampshade compared to the one on the X7 Ultra. So this one, almost identical. Now, before we get into more photos, I do want to kick things over to Dan wearing a completely different shirt to let you know more about today's sponsor, Keeper. Ever wish you could just get rid of passwords forever? Don't we all? Luckily, passkeys are here and they're bringing us one step closer to a passwordless future. Keeper Security, the password manager that I use, and of course the sponsor of today's video, now supports passkeys on iPhone and Android. Keeper also supports passkeys in their browser extension, which means with Keeper you can create and use both passwords and passkeys across any of your devices. Passkeys let you log into apps and accounts the same way you would unlock your phone with your fingerprint or facial recognition, and they're super secure. They're phishing resistant and support two-factor authentication by design. It's kind of wild to me that people in 2024 still don't use a password manager, and if you're one of those people, I highly recommend signing up for Keeper, and you can do so by clicking the link in the description down below for a free 30-day trial, or you can use code MacRumors50 for a 50% off discount, and I highly recommend doing so. And of course, thank you so much, Keeper, for sponsoring today's video. Let's go to night mode, and this is where I think I have a stronger preference towards the Oppo X7 Ultra. I think it does a much better job, at least in this photo. This is almost perfect. It looks great. This is, from what I recall, naturally being exactly what it looked like that day. Of course, with the grass here, it wasn't as yellowish. That's kind of what most cameras do when they do the long exposure, and same with the trees. But it does a better job of kind of maintaining that darker look. Here on the iPhone, it's blowing it up a little bit too much. It was much more natural here on the Oppo, and I like it. And it keeps the vibrancy, the saturation. As you can see, the ball, it's overexposing those lights a little bit, not so much on the Oppo. It's a perfect photo, in my opinion, to the X7 Ultra. This one, again, the details that you see on the X7 Ultra, just so much better than what you're getting on the iPhone. I know the composition, again, isn't quite the same. There's so many people. I'm getting bumped. I'm trying my best to take photos on different phones in a crowded area. It's not that easy. So I did my best, but I just feel like this is doing a much better job at getting all of the details. This one, I will say the iPhone is much better. I don't know what happened here on the Oppo X7 Ultra on the ship. I don't get it. I like the sky's colors a little bit more, but it's just not a good photo. Either one's really not that great, but I think the iPhone is a lot better in my opinion. You can just make out what's happening here. This is where a where it did what it's been doing, and it was a good time for it. It's bringing up the highlights a little more so you can make out those darker areas better, and it's a much more in focus, sharper image compared to the Oppo X7 Ultra. So hats off to the iPhone there. This one, again, I actually think I'm going to go iPhone. This is weird. Like, look at this sky. I have no idea why it's so vibrant and blue. This is definitely not what it looked like that day, but I kind of like it. Here, I dig the castle on the X7 Ultra. It's a lot softer on the people. Obviously, my main interest was the castle, and it does a really good job. And then you can just tell here, you're getting a lot of artifacts and reflections coming from these lights on the iPhone. You can see them all right here where I'm circling my cursor. You can just tell that it's just a reflection, and you don't get that on the Oppo X7 Ultra. It does a much better job at handling these extra lights. Again, on this one, just kind of much of the same. Everything's much more vibrant, and it does a really good job with the sky. And I really like the nighttime photos that come out of the Oppo X7 Ultra. Now, this isn't really a night photo here of my son. This is kind of a lower light condition, and it's almost the same exact area. He just turned around. So if you're wondering why you're seeing something different, trust me, I tried to make this as fair as I could. But the lights, handle it the same way here. It's that purplish hue where you're waiting in line for that Guardians of the Galaxy ride. If you've ever been to that ride, you'll know that on the X7 Ultra, it is much more natural of what the lights are doing, but it's a bad photo. The iPhone does a better job here of just kind of changing the color temperature, even though it's not natural. I just think this is better of my son here on this picture, so I'm going to give that to the iPhone. Again, this one, I gotta say, it goes to the X7 Ultra. It definitely darkened everything, and you can't make out as much. Like, there are people here in this area because you can see that on the iPhone. But I kind of like what it did. It took like its own little, artistic style. And of course, the sign just looks so much better on the X7 Ultra compared to the iPhone. Lastly, we have portrait photos. Now, this one, a lot of people in the poll that we put out overwhelmingly said iPhone. I think I have to go with it. It's doing that, bringing up the highlights a little bit more like it's been doing. And it also is a warmer color profile. And for this picture, it works a little bit better. This one, I'm going Oppo X7 Ultra 100%. Although in some areas, so if you see this Sensi sign underneath the Dumbo the Flying Elephant, I feel like it's a little bit sharper on the iPhone, but I just love the colors that you're getting. It's not as washed out. Now with this one, at first glance, I was gonna go just because I liked the orange shade here on the X7 Ultra a little bit more, but I think you can call this a toss-up. They both do an excellent job. The inside part of this ring here, I do this one a lot because it specifically, shows the water, which is what, in theory, we need to separate from the subject, which is the actual ring, compared to the water, which is the background. And a lot of times photos on certain phones, even iPhones in the past, would kind of have this to be the inside of the water be in focus, and you don't want it to be. And both phones do a really good job. So I think it's just going to come down to what do you feel about the color, or how do you feel about the color of the ring? And personally, I like this orangish red shade a little bit more on the Ultra, but again, toss up. They both look really, really good. Now, when it comes to this, the aperture, definitely, this is all auto, again, point and shoot. You could change the iPhone's, bokeh and make that aperture appear to be a little bit wider so you can get that really insane blur that you're getting on the X7 Ultra, but you might not want that. See, it's blurring a little bit of the top of the cup here, and so maybe you don't want that, but it is a much more like artistic photo, technically, if you think bokeh is super artistic. The iPhone kind of kept it at 2.2, trying to make it a little bit sharp, a little bit background out of focus, but not overdoing it. This is a 1.6. And again, you can adjust these, but the whole point is I'm not going to do that, because if you don't know how to do that, that doesn't really fit the whole pull your phone out, point and shoot, send it kind of thing. Last couple photos here. The iPhone wins. The X7 Ultra just struggled. Uncharacteristically, the end for some weird reason is blurred, and it struggled. I like the picture better on this one, but it just doesn't look as good on the portrait mode. This one is technically a portrait mode photo. Distance is a little bit different. Again, the composition's a little bit different. I think the iPhone was a lot more sharp on the actual statue part compared to the X7 Ultra. This is, again, where it would have been a good time to not crush these shadows as much, and the iPhone's been doing what it's been doing the whole time, and so I really like the way this picture looks. So overall, I obviously really liked a lot of the photos that came from the Oppo Find X7 Ultra. I think that's my personal preference for most of them, but again, a lot of them are just toss-ups, and it's just gonna depend on which ones you liked more, what color profile you like. If you like things to be a little bit more saturated with those colors, a little bit more vibrant, then you might go with one over the other. But I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. What do you think? Which ones were your favorite? Let me know. And if you want to see a video test between each phone, again, let me know down in those comments. This has been Dan with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around in the next video.